Rudy Gobert, Kyle Anderson, they got into a heated exchange during a second quarter timeout of their regular season finale that was against the Pelicans. It led Gobert, watch him here, to striking Kyle Anderson, and the two had to be separated by teammates. And then Gobert, he would be sent home at halftime before the Wolves would erase a double-digit deficit to defeat New Orleans. And then afterwards, Gobert tweeted this. He said, quote, "Emotions, they got the best of me today. I should not have reacted the way I did, regardless of what was said, and I want to apologize to the fans, to the organization, particularly to Kyle, who is someone that I truly love and respect as a teammate." So for more on Gobert and the Wolves, we now welcome in senior NBA insider Adrian Wojnarowski, who broke the news that Rudy Gobert will be suspended for one game. Woj, how did Minnesota come to this decision?
Malika, simply the fact that Rudy Gobert threw a punch at a teammate in a huddle during an NBA game. There was just no way around not suspending Gobert for that action. Now, listen, I think this organization, they're not happy with either player, Rudy Gobert or Kyle Anderson. I think they felt certainly Kyle Anderson played a role in escalating it. He didn't throw a punch, but he kept on Rudy Gobert verbally. And I think part of what Rudy Gobert was trying to say to Anderson in the huddle was that he was playing injured, that he was giving it what he could. And so I think those were all factors. The punch thrown at Kyle Anderson, it wasn't thrown at his head, it was at his chest. It wasn't necessarily trying to injure him, but you can't do it. And so now, not only did they lose Rudy Gobert for the second half on Sunday, he's out against the Lakers on Tuesday in the play-in. Now, this is a one-game suspension. He will be back. Whether they lose that play-in game, return home Friday to play the winner of Oklahoma City, New Orleans, or they win and move on to the Western Conference playoffs. But he will not travel with the team to L.A. Gobert won't. And now this is a Minnesota team. Remember, lost Naz Reid, their backup center, a couple weeks ago with a wrist injury. And, of course, Jaden McDaniels also out. This is a tall order to beat the Lakers right now in L.A., and they'll have to do it without Gobert on Tuesday.
Perk, what do you think? Was this the right call to suspend Gobert for one game, one pivotal game here?
It was just bad timing. But, for us being, the front office and the organization, they had to set this standard and suspend them because, you got to let it be known that it's not going to be tolerated and it's not accepted. So it's just bad timing. Obviously, they need Rudy right now. This is a crucial part of the season. Critical part is basically do or die. He'll be back. I feel like they're not going to win the game tomorrow without him. But, again, the Timberwolves did the right thing. They had to suspend him.
This was the right thing. This was absolutely the worst timing.
Yeah.
And I am glad that Rudy also did the right thing in saying that, hey, I apologize. This was wrong. He was quick to it. He didn't try to put his story out there. He just said, hey, I know this was this was the horrible situation and I made a mistake. And so I commend Rudy. I do think that there's a bigger thing, that sort of represents what Rudy has been going through. To question his defensive capability, I think he takes that personally. Just as someone who was a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, someone that's been a rebounding leader, someone that's been a blocks leader, and someone that's playing not 100%, which we all know, no one at this time of year is playing 100%. But to question something that he takes so much pride in, which is like go out there and get blocks, while that might seem casual to most people, it's personal to Rudy Gobert, and that's why it had that vitriol kind of reaction. You're not supposed to put your hands on your teammates. I understand Woj did a good job of saying, hey, this was not the head, this was the chest, but overall, this sort of just gives you more questions about the chemistry, the viability of what's going on, and you don't want those types of mentalities going into a play-in, and now you're underhanded.
Ramona, how has this reverberated, Gobert specifically, around the team?
I mean, there is just widespread disbelief that this happened in this game with a play-in game and everything they've worked for. This is a team that's had a sickness that went through their team the last couple of weeks. They all finally are somewhat healthy. And so to have Jaden McDaniels go down in this game and Gobert now suspended for this game, and let's be clear, this was an organizational decision. This wasn't something where they polled the rest of the guys on the team and said, what do you guys think? This was made upstairs, and that matters here. But who's going to guard Anthony Davis now? Who's going to guard LeBron James? Because Rudy was going to guard AD, and McDaniels was going to guard LeBron James. I mean, the timing of this is unbelievable. Not to mention audio of Kyle Anderson talking to Rudy Gobert in that locker room leaked online.
What did it
and
say?
there is just him talking about Rudy, and it's the fact that leaked online after that game with what's at stake is going down very, very poorly with people in Minnesota. We saw that in the Draymond Green situation where the tape of the incident with Jordan Poole went on to TMZ. They fully did an investigation. That was a huge breach of trust. And so to Chiney's point about the chemistry on that team and the overall vibe, for audio of that to leak is just unbelievable to people in Minnesota.
It feels like there is so much going on within the Timberwolves right now as we welcome back Adrian Wojnarowski, because Woj, Gobert, he's not the only player, as we've alluded to, that they will be missing heading into this postseason. Power forward Jaden McDaniels, the team's arguably most versatile defender, he will not be there. What more can you tell us about both his importance and what happened?
Yeah, Malika, prior to the Anderson Gobert incident, Jaden McDaniels, walked away from the bench, essentially punched a wall in the tunnel outside the locker room. You see it there. And he fractured his hand. He is out for the rest of the season. And within the Timberwolves organization, that is seen as the bigger loss here. That is, I think, for Tuesday night against the Lakers and trying to move forward, whether it's to get out of the play-in and into the playoffs. The McDaniels loss is, I think, felt certainly more significantly. This was a breakout year for him, one of the best defenders in the league, and a player who Minnesota used to guard everybody's best player. He would have spent a lot of time on LeBron James Tuesday night against the Lakers, but not only is he gone for the play-in, he's gone for the rest of the season. This was a costly final day of the regular season for the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Pressure bust pipes. We've all heard the term. Pressure is a-coming. We saw this with the Clippers. There was a little bit of jarring back and forth between Bones and Plumlee. We now see this. We see it. And ultimately, look, let me first say this. Kyle Anderson, he's in the wrong, right? Rudy Gobert, if someone's calling you certain words and certain names in front of your entire team, in front of an audience of people, you should. Now, was it a punch? I think it was more of a push. I wasn't going to say an actual punch. If you're punching somebody, you don't necessarily go straight chest. Those are semantics. Ultimately, right now, what we see is there is a pressure field. A lot of these teams have been in the postseason for a month, if not longer, battling all these things. Are we 7, tiebreaker, all this stuff. And then the King Petty shows up. My guy, Draymond Green. We love Petty around here because if you stay petty, you don't have to get petty. And Draymond Green, he had that in his drafts. He had that in his drafts. Ready and waiting. Shout out my guy Draymond. Although Rudy, I love you too.
He put the ellipsis on the end.
Those two guys have been going at it.
Draymond, love it. I love the petty, but ultimately, I think this is just about pressure. Teams have been under immense, intensity for 6 weeks a month, and now it's at the spot where it's like you go rebound. But if you start calling me out my name in front of, we've seen fans kicked out of arenas for saying far less to somebody. So when your teammates calling you that, then yes, there is a frustration. I don't know the context. I'm not going to get in that. Shout out Tim Conley and the management of the Timberwolves.
They made the right decision
for getting this done and also setting and establishing your culture, because he just got there 2 years ago.
Well, the Timberwolves, they are 8-4 without Rudy Gobert, and when it comes to this, when it's win or go home, this is the most important time of the year. Just an absolutely consequential Sunday for the Timberwolves here. This is the series, though, the Clippers and the Suns. Is it the most exciting series that we know so far in the Western Conference?
I mean, it may not be the most exciting, but it's got a lot of really good storylines. And shout out to my guy, producer Tunde, who produces Podcast P with Paul George. I love that. So the storylines are this: teams, reunions. You've got Chris Paul and the Clippers. You've got teammates, reunions. You've got KD and Russ, new look Russ, who if you looked at Russ going up against the Lakers, you're like, oh, maybe this is the time for him to really find acclimation with a great team. But most importantly, we're talking about the Suns here, y'all. This is a team that we feel like they can win a championship, even though it's hard to do so in the first first year. If you think about Kevin Durant, what are they? What's their record?
8-0.
8-0 when he's in the lineup. So overall, the Suns, this is the first opportunity for us to see if they can make this work, because they invested everything in their mama's house to make this work with Kevin Durant. I think this first step is going to have underrated, really solid storyline.
Yeah, I hope Paul George is able to come back at some point in this series, because it has the potential to be so very good. I need a little bit seasoning. I need something a little bit spicy for this segment that we're doing here. So I need a hot take. What's your spiciest prediction for the first round?
Oh, I got the Clippers beating the Suns. It don't get no spicier than that. And here's why. Even without Paul George, when I look at the Clippers and I look at their depth at the wing position, when you look at Kawhi Leonard and Nicholas Batum and Covington and Norman Powell, and you see all those multiple guys that they could actually throw at KD and Devin Booker, when you got a guy like Trey Mann. See, I'm watching yesterday, and we saw Plumlee and Bones Highland getting each other face. That's because they care. And so over the last 2 months, we talk about Anthony Davis, and we talked about Joel Embiid and Giannis and Jokic, right? But we didn't talk about Kawhi Leonard, and he has quietly been dominating the league without getting our praise. And when I look at this matchup and I look at Ty Lue, and Richard knows this, Ty Lue is one to not be underestimated when it comes down to him game planning and looking forward to these challenges. So when I look at this and I look at Russell Westbrook, who also has something to prove, I got the Clippers in 6 beating the Phoenix Suns.
Wow, that feels extra spicy considering the fact that they struggled to beat them on the final day of the regular season without their big four, the Suns' big four in the lineup.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.